Welcome back, dear friends and story lovers. Tonight we bring you a tale where love is tested, secrets come to light, and fate takes an unexpected turn. Every moment will pull you in deeper, and every choice could change everything. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and if this story touches your heart, like, subscribe, share it with someone who believes in true love, and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Let's dig in, asterisk. The warehouse reeked of rust and death. Maya Chen pressed her back against the cold concrete wall, but her breath coming in short, controlled bursts. Blood from the fresh cut above her left eyebrow dripped onto her black tactical vest, but she didn't dare move to wipe it away. 3 floors below, she could hear footsteps echoing through the abandoned building. They'd found her. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the encrypted drive in her jacket pocket. 7 years of undercover work, 7 years of building trust with the Kozlov crime family, and it all came down to this moment. The drive contained enough evidence to bring down the entire Eastern European trafficking ring, but only if she could get it to her FBI handler alive. Maya. The voice carried up through the darkness, smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. Viktor Kozlov. I know you're here, little bird. Come down and we'll talk. Her jaw clenched. She'd shared a bed with that voice for 6 months, let those hands trace every scar on her body, whispered secrets in the dark that no federal agent should ever tell their target. And now he knew. Somehow he knew exactly what she was. A door slammed open 3 floors down, then another. They were searching floor by floor. Maya pulled out her phone and typed a message to her handler. Compromised. Package secured. If I don't make contact in 24 hours, burn everything. She was about to hit send when she heard it. A single footstep behind her. Going somewhere, Agent Chen? Maya spun around, her hand moving toward her weapon, but froze when she saw who stood in the doorway. Not Victor's men. Not the Kozlov enforcers she'd been expecting. It was David Cross, her FBI partner, her mentor. The man who'd recruited her out of Quantico 7 years ago. And who knew every detail of this operation. He was pointing a gun directly at her heart. David, the word came out as barely a whisper. What are you doing here? His face was stone, but she caught something flickering in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or regret. The same thing you are, Maya, trying to survive. You're working for them. It wasn't a question. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. You've been working for the Kozlovs this whole time. 15 years. His voice was steady, but she could see the slight tremor in his gun hand. Since before you were even out of college, the betrayal hit her like a physical blow. David had been more than her partner. He'd been her anchor, the one person in this twisted world she'd thought she could trust completely. He'd held her when the nightmares got too bad, when playing Victor's lover had torn pieces of her soul away. He'd promised her this would all be worth it in the end. The drive, Maya. Hand it over. She could hear Victor's voice getting closer. 2nd floor now, maybe 1st. You know, I can't do that. Her hand inched toward her weapon. Don't. David's gun never wavered. You know I'm faster than you. I taught you everything you know about quick draw, but not everything I know about survival. Maya's eyes darted to the window behind David, 4 stories up, with nothing but concrete below. It should terrify her. Instead, it looked like the only chance she had left. Maya, please. For the first time, David's voice cracked. Just give me the drive. Walk away. Disappear. I'll tell them you're dead and let those girls keep disappearing. She thought of the files on the drive, the shipping manifests, the photos of children who would never see their families again. You know I can't. David's finger moved to the trigger, and I'm sorry. The warehouse door burst open below them. Victor's voice no longer smooth but sharp with anger. She's here. Top floor. Maya looked at David one last time, memorizing the face of the man who'd been her world for 7 years. Sorry, too. She dove backward through the window, just as 2 shots rang out simultaneously. Glass shattered around her as she fell through the night air. The city lights blurring into streaks of gold and red, 4 stories down with concrete rushing up to meet her, But Maya Chen hadn't survived 7 years undercover by giving up when the odds looked impossible. She just needed to figure out how to land without dying, get the drive to someone she could trust, and stay alive long enough to bring down everyone who'd betrayed her, starting with the man she'd loved like a father, the man who'd just tried to kill her. Asterisk. Maya crashed through the canvas awning of a food truck with a sound like thunder. The impact drove the air from her lungs and sent sharp pain racing up her left arm, but she was alive. The awning had slowed her fall just enough to keep the concrete from shattering every bone in her body. She rolled off the crumpled canvas, gasping, tasting blood, and feeling like she'd been hit by a freight train. Jesus Christ, a man's voice, low and gravelly, with a hint of an accent she couldn't place. Lady, what the hell were you doing up there? Maya looked up through a haze of pain and saw a face that stopped her heart for entirely different reasons than the fall had. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair, eyes the color of winter storms, and a scar that ran from his left temple down to his jaw, turning what might have been a pretty face into something far more dangerous. She knew that scar. She'd studied the police photos, memorized every detail of the man who bore it. Nikolai Petrov, former Spetsnaz, current ghost. The man who'd supposedly died in a bombing in Moscow 2 years ago, taking with him the location of $50 million in stolen arms, money that 3 governments would kill to recover. He was crouched beside her, his hand surprisingly gentle as they checked her for injuries. But Maya could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes never stopped scanning their surroundings. Even playing Good Samaritan, he was ready. For violence. Can you move? He asked. Maya tested her limbs. Her left arm screamed in protest, probably sprained or fractured, but everything else seemed functional. Yeah, good. Because in about 30 seconds, this place is going to be crawling with very unfriendly people. As if on cue, shouts erupted. From the warehouse above them, flashlight beams began sweeping the area around the building. Why are you helping me? Maya struggled to sit up, her vision swimming. Nikolai's smile was sharp as broken glass. Maybe I have a soft spot for women who fall out of windows. Or maybe I don't like the Kozlovs any more than you do. You know who they are? I know who you are, Agent Chen. Maya's blood turned to ice. Her cover was blown with the FBI, blown with the Kozlovs, and now apparently blown with the dead Russian operative whose motives she couldn't begin to guess. Relax. Nikolai stood and extended his hand. If I wanted you dead, I'd have let gravity finish the job. The flashlight beams were getting closer. Maya could hear Victor shouting orders in Russian. They had maybe 20 seconds before the search reached the alley. She took Nikolai's hand. His grip was firm, calloused, and surprisingly warm. He pulled her to her feet with careful strength, steadying her when she swayed. My truck, he said, nodding toward a battered pickup parked at the mouth of the alley. Unless you'd prefer to explain to your boyfriend why you jumped out a window, he's not my boyfriend. No, he's the man you've been sleeping with for 6 months, while gathering evidence to destroy his family's empire. Nikolai's eyes met hers, and she saw something there that made her breath catch. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of a fellow survivor. Like I said, we need to go now. Maya heard footsteps at the far end of the alley. No time to think, no time to weigh options. She'd survived the fall, survived David's betrayal, but she wouldn't survive Victor finding her. She ran. Nikolai kept pace beside her, his movements fluid and silent despite their speed. They reached the truck just as the first flashlight beam swept into the alley behind them. Engine turned over with a quiet purr that spoke of serious modifications under the hood. Nikolai pulled away from the curb without headlights, navigating by street lamps in memory through the industrial district. Where are we going? Maya asked. Somewhere safe? That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting right now. Nikolai glanced at her in the rearview mirror. The drive you're carrying. What's on it? Maya's hand instinctively moved to her jacket pocket. How do you know about the drive? Because I'm the one who helped create half the files on it. The revelation hit her like a second fall. You're an informant. I'm a man with his own reasons for wanting Viktor Kozlov dead. Nikolai's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The same reasons that got me killed in Moscow, officially. Maya studied his profile in the passing streetlights. The scar, the careful way he held himself, the eyes that had seen too much. She'd read his file a dozen times during her training. Nikolai Petrov had been one of Russia's most decorated special forces operators until he'd discovered his commanding officer was selling weapons to the highest bidder. He'd tried to expose the corruption through official channels. That had been his first mistake. His second mistake had been thinking he could disappear cleanly when the official channels had tried to have him killed. "Victor killed your team," she said quietly. "What?" "Victor supplied the bombs that killed my team." Nikolai's voice was flat, emotionless, but Maya caught the muscle that jumped in his jaw. 16 good soldiers died because of weapons he helped funnel to Chechen rebels, including my brother. Maya felt something shift in her chest. The pain, the betrayal, the bone-deep exhaustion of playing someone else for so long, it was all there in his voice. He understood what it was like to lose everything to people who treated human lives like poker chips. "So what's the plan?" she asked. "The plan is to stay alive long enough to make them pay." Nikolai turned into what looked like an abandoned auto shop, but Maya caught the nearly invisible cameras, the reinforced steel behind the rusted exterior. This wasn't just a hideout. This was a fortress. And then Nikolai killed the engine and turned to look at her directly. In the darkness of the truck cab, his eyes seemed to glow. "Then we burned their world down." Maya felt a smile tug at her lips, the first genuine smile she'd worn in months. "I can live with that." But as they walked toward the hidden entrance, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Nikolai was keeping secrets as dangerous as her own. And in a game where trust was the most expensive commodity, she was about to bet everything on a dead man who might be exactly what he appeared to be, or might be the most dangerous enemy she'd ever faced. The safe house was a study in controlled paranoia. Maya counted at least 6 different security systems in the first room alone. From motion sensors disguised as light fixtures to pressure plates hidden beneath carefully positioned rugs, the walls were lined with monitors showing feeds from cameras positioned throughout a 6-block radius. Weapons were stashed in locations that looked random but formed. Perfect defensive positions. It was the kind of place you built when you knew that everyone you'd ever trusted would eventually try to kill you. "Impressive," she said, accepting the glass of vodka Nikolai handed her. The alcohol burned, but it helped with the pain radiating from her injured arm. "Paranoid, you mean?" Nikolai settled into a chair across from her, his own glass untouched. "But paranoid keeps you breathing." Maya studied him in the better light. The scar was even more pronounced than she'd thought. A jagged line that spoke of violence barely survived. But it was his hands that caught her attention. They moved with surgical precision, never wasting motion, never fully relaxed. A killer's hands. "Why did you really help me tonight?" she asked. "I told you we have the same enemy." "Yeah, that's not a reason to risk your life for a federal agent you've never met." Nikolai was quiet for a long moment, rolling his glass between his palms. When he looked up, something had changed in his expression. The careful mask had slipped, revealing raw pain underneath. "Because I know what it's like to fall," he said finally. "And I know what it's like to have no one catch you." The words hit deeper than Maya had expected. She thought of David's face in the warehouse, the man who'd been her anchor for 7 years, pointing a gun at her heart. The bombing in Moscow. You weren't supposed to survive. No one was supposed to survive. Victor's buyer wanted to eliminate all witnesses to the arms deal. 16 soldiers dead, 1 facility destroyed, and $50 million in weapons money vanished into accounts that couldn't be traced. Nikolai's voice was steady, but his knuckles had gone white around the glass. "I lived because I was 5. Minutes late to the briefing, got held up disarming a bomb on the perimeter. And you've been hunting Victor ever since." "Victor?" "David Cross. The network of corrupt officials who made it all possible." Nikolai met her eyes, including the FBI deputy director who's been feeding information to the Kozlovs for the past 3 years. Maya's blood turned to ice. "Deputy Director Harrison? You know him?" "He's David's boss. Approved my undercover assignment." The implications crashed over her like a tide. If Harrison's compromised, then the entire operation was designed to fail from the beginning. or designed to eliminate an inconvenient federal agent who was getting too close to the truth? Maya set down her glass with hands that had begun to shake. 7 years. 7 years of her life, of sleeping beside a killer, of watching innocent people disappear while she built her case. All of it orchestrated by the very people who were supposed to be protecting her. "They never intended for me to come back," she whispered. "No, but you did. And now you have something they need to destroy." Maya pulled the encrypted drive from her pocket, staring at the innocuous piece of technology that had cost so many lives. "What exactly is on here? You said you helped create half the files?" Nikolai's expression darkened. "Financial records. Communication logs between Victor's organization and their contacts in the Russian military. But that's not the dangerous part." "What's the dangerous part?" "The list of assets." Nikolai leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Every corrupt official, every dirty cop, every politician on Victor's payroll. In 3 countries, including names that would topple governments." Maya felt the world tilt around her. She'd thought she was carrying evidence of a trafficking ring. Instead, she was holding a weapon that could reshape the geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe. "Why did you help him create this?" "Because I thought I was building evidence to take down the arms dealers who killed my brother." Nikolai's laugh was bitter. "Turns out I was building Victor's insurance policy. He keeps the list as leverage, ensures his protection by making sure that anyone who might move against him has too much to lose. But if we release it, we destroy the network that's been feeding on blood money for decades. We also probably start 3 different wars and collapse the current Russian government." Maya stared at the drive, understanding finally why David had been willing to kill her for it, why Victor had burned her cover, why she'd been set up to die in that warehouse. "They can't let this get out, no, which means they can't let us live." A soft chime from one of the security monitors made them both freeze. Nikolai was on his feet instantly, moving to the bank of screens with fluid grace. Maya followed, her heart hammering. "What is it?" "Motion sensors. Eastern perimeter." Nikolai's fingers flew across a keyboard, switching between camera feeds. 3 vehicles. Professional formation. Maya leaned closer to the screens and felt her stomach drop. She recognized the lead vehicle. "That's David's car. Then they found us faster than I expected." Nikolai was already moving, pulling weapons from hidden compartments with practiced efficiency. "How badly do you want to live, Agent Chen?" Maya took the pistol he offered her, checking the clip with automatic precision. Her injured arm protested, but she could still shoot. "It's badly enough to kill the man who raised me." Smile was sharp as a blade, because in about 2 minutes, that's exactly what you're going to have to do. The monitors showed tactical teams deploying around the building. No FBI identification. No uniforms. Just black-clad figures moving with military precision toward the hidden entrances. "There's something else," Nikolai said, not taking his eyes off the screens. "About the night your cover was blown. What about it?" "Victor didn't discover you were FBI through his own investigation." Nikolai turned to face her, and Maya saw something that made her blood freeze. "Pity," he was told. "By someone who knew exactly where you'd be and when." The implication hit her like a physical blow. "David didn't just betray me tonight. He's been betraying me all along. The question is, did he do it to save you or to destroy you?" Before Maya could respond, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. On the monitors, the tactical teams had reached the doors. "Time's up," Nikolai said, his voice deadly calm in the darkness. "I hope you're ready to learn who you really can trust." The first explosion shook the building to its foundations. Maya gripped her weapon tighter and realized that after tonight, either she'd finally have the answers she'd been seeking for 7 years, or she'd be dead alongside the only person who might be able to give them to her. The firefight lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Maya knew because she counted every second, every muzzle flash, every breath between the moment the tactical teams breached safe house and the moment silence fell like a curtain over the carnage. She crouched behind an overturned table, her injured arm screaming in protest as she returned fire through the smoke-filled room. Nikolai moved like a ghost through the chaos, appearing and disappearing between cover, his shots precise and lethal. These weren't FBI agents storming the building. These were professional killers, and they'd come prepared for war. But they hadn't been prepared for Nikolai. When the last attacker fell, Maya emerged from cover to find 6 bodies scattered across the room and Nikolai standing in the center of it all. Uninjured but covered in other people's blood. "We need to move," he said, already gathering equipment. This was just the first wave. Maya nodded, but she couldn't take her eyes off the bodies. "These aren't federal agents, no. Private contractors. The kind Victor uses when he needs something done quietly. David wouldn't." "Wouldn't what? Send killers after his own partner?" Nikolai stopped packing and looked at her directly. "How do you think Victor knew exactly which apartment building you lived in? Which route you took to work? Which coffee shop you stopped at every morning?" The words hit like physical blows. Maya sank into a chair, her mind racing back through 7 years of careful routine, of security protocols that David had helped design. Every safe house, every contact method, every escape route. All of it had been compromised from the beginning. "He was never trying to protect me," she whispered. "The whole operation was designed to get me killed." Not killed. Discredited. Nikolai knelt beside her chair, his voice gentle, despite the violence that surrounded them. "Think about it. A rogue federal agent with connections to Russian organized crime. A woman who'd been sleeping with her target, compromised by emotional attachment. If you died in that warehouse tonight, what would the official report have said?" Maya closed her eyes, seeing it all with sickening clarity. "That I'd gone rogue. That I'd stolen classified information and tried to sell it to the Kozlovs. That David had to kill me to stop me. And the drive would disappear, along with all the evidence it contains. Victor stays protected, the network stays intact, and David gets promoted for taking down a corrupt agent. But I survived. You survived. And now they have a problem." Nikolai stood and resumed packing, because if you surface with that evidence, David's story falls apart. The corruption gets exposed. People start asking uncomfortable questions about how a federal agent could be compromised so completely without anyone noticing. A new sound cut through the air. Helicopter rotors getting closer. "Tell me you have an escape plan," Maya said. "I have an escape plan." Nikolai slung a bag over his shoulder and headed for a door Maya hadn't noticed before. "But it requires trusting someone who might be working for the other side." "Who?" "Victor Kozlov." Maya stared at him. "You want to trust the man who killed your brother?" "I want to use him." Nikolai paused at the door, his hand on the handle. "Victor thinks I'm dead. He also thinks you're a rogue federal agent trying to sell him information. If we play this right, we can get close enough to end this. And if we play it wrong, then we die." But we were going to die anyway. The helicopter sounds were getting louder. "The difference is, this way we might take some of them with us." Maya looked around the destroyed safe house, at the bodies of men who'd come to kill her, at the monitors still showing David's car parked outside. She thought of 7 years of her life, of the girls whose names were on that drive, of the brother. Nikolai had lost to Victor's greed. What's the plan? Nikolai's smile was sharp as winter. "We're going to give Victor exactly what he thinks he wants. Corrupt federal agent with classified information to sell. And then we're going to destroy him from the inside." And David chose his side a long time ago. Nikolai opened the door, revealing a tunnel that led into darkness. "The question is, are you ready to choose yours?" Maya took one last look at the safe house, at the evidence of violence that had become her world. Then she followed Nikolai into the tunnel. They emerged 20 minutes later in the basement of an abandoned office building 6 blocks away. Nikolai led her to a different vehicle, this one equipped with communication gear that looked military grade. "I need to make a call," he said, settling behind the equipment to set up the meeting. With Victor. Nikolai began dialing a number from memory. "Maya, there's something else you need to know. About why I really helped you tonight." She waited, watching him work. "I didn't just know about your operation. I knew about you." His voice was carefully controlled. "I've been watching you for 6 months. Learning your patterns, your relationships, your weaknesses." Maya's blood turned to ice. You were hunting me. I was protecting you. Nikolai looked up from the communications gear, because 3 months ago, I intercepted communications, suggesting that David was planning to eliminate his own partner. I just didn't know when. So you saved me to use me. I saved you because Nikolai stopped, something raw and unguarded crossing his face. Because I know what it's like to be betrayed by the people you trust most. And because I couldn't watch, it happened to someone else. The confession hung between them in the dark vehicle. Maya stared at this man who'd materialized out of nowhere to save her life, who'd known her secrets before she'd known his, who'd been watching her with intentions she still couldn't read. How do I know you won't betray me too? She asked quietly. Nikolai finished dialing and looked at her directly. You don't. Maya heard Victor's voice, smooth and familiar, on the other end of the line. Victor, this is Ghost. I have something you want. I have someone who wants to make a deal. Maya closed her eyes and realized that in the next few hours, she would either finally get justice for all the people who died for Victor's greed, or she would discover that the only person she'd thought she could trust was just another predator. And she was walking willingly into the most dangerous trap of her life. The helicopter sounds had faded, but Maya could hear something else now. The sound of her own heartbeat, loud and fast in her ears, counting down the moments until she would have to bet everything on a dead man's promise. In a world where everyone had already betrayed her once, the warehouse district looked exactly the same as it had 3 hours ago. Maya stood in the shadow of the same building she'd fallen from, watching Victor's black Mercedes pull up to the designated meeting point. Her ribs ached. Her arm was still, tender from the fall. She'd never been more terrified in her life. But she'd also never been more certain of what she had to do. Remember, Nikolai's voice crackled through the earpiece he'd given her. Your agent Maya Chen gone rogue. Looking to sell information? Let him think he's in control. And you. I'm the dead man who's going to kill him. Maya stepped out of the shadows as Victor emerged from his car. Even in the industrial lighting, he looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, elegant, with the kind of dangerous charisma that had made it easy to pretend to love him for 6 months. Behind him, she could see David getting out of the passenger seat. The sight of her former partner sent ice through her veins. But she kept walking. Hello, Victor. His smile was warm, familiar, and completely false. Maya, you look terrible. It's been a difficult evening. I imagine so. Victor glanced around the empty lot. David tells me you've been making some very poor decisions. Been making the only decisions I could. Maya kept her voice steady, professional. You burned my cover. My own agency wants me dead. I don't have many options left, but you have something I want. Maya pulled the encrypted drive from her pocket, holding it where Victor could see it. 7 years of intelligence. Financial. Records, operational details, asset lists. Everything the FBI collected on your organization. Victor's eyes locked on the drive, and you're willing to sell it? I'm willing to trade it. For safe passage out of the country, and enough money too. Disappear permanently. How do I know it's real? Maya tossed him a second drive. Sample files. 5% of what's on the main drive. Verify it. Victor handed the sample drive to one of his men, who plugged it into a tablet. After a moment, the man nodded. Real, Victor said, his smile widening. But there's a problem, Maya. What problem? I don't make deals with federal agents, even rogue ones. David stepped forward, his gun already drawn. I told you she couldn't be trusted. Maya looked at the man who'd been her mentor, her father figure, her anchor in the chaos of undercover work. You set me up from the beginning. I saved your life from the beginning. David's voice was tight with what might have been genuine. Regret. Do you have any idea what would have happened if you'd actually succeeded? If you'd brought down this network, justice would have happened? War would have happened? David's gun never wavered. You think exposing this corruption would make the world safer? It would destabilize 3 governments, collapse intelligence. Networks that have kept the peace for decades and get thousands of innocent people killed, and the girls who disappeared, the children who died, they don't matter. They matter less than global stability. Maya stared at him, seeing finally the man he'd always been underneath the protective facade. You really believe that? I've spent 20 years keeping this world from tearing itself apart. Sometimes that means making compromises. Sometimes That means sacrificing the few for the many. Sometimes that means becoming exactly what you're supposed to fight against. Victor laughed. How touching. The student discovers her teacher's true nature, but this reunion is taking too long. He nodded to his men who raised their weapons. Wait. Maya held up her hand. There's something else you need to know. What? Maya smiled. Nikolai Petrov says hello. The first shot came from the rooftop. Across the street, Victor's bodyguard dropped instantly, blood spreading across his chest. The second shot shattered the tablet with the sample drive. Chaos erupted. Victor's men scattered, looking for cover, returning fire toward the rooftop. David spun toward Maya, his gun swinging up, but she was already moving. 7 years of training. 7 years of staying alive in situations where hesitation meant death. She tackled David around the waist, sending them both crashing to the ground. His gun went off, the bullet sparking off concrete inches from her. Head, Maya, don't do this, he gasped, struggling beneath her weight. I trusted you. Maya's voice broke on the words. I loved you like a father. I am trying to protect you. No, you're trying to protect yourself. Maya wrenched the gun from his hands and rolled away as more shots rang out around them. Through the chaos, she could see Victor behind his car. Shouting orders, his expensive suit torn and dirty, Nikolai appeared out of the darkness like an avenging ghost, moving through Victor's men with lethal precision. These weren't the private contractors from the safe house. These were Victor's personal security, men who'd killed for him for years. But they'd never faced anyone like Nikolai. In 30 seconds, it was over. Victor found himself alone, his men dead or fled, facing a federal agent and a man he'd thought he'd killed 2 years ago. Surprised? Nikolai asked, walking closer with casual confidence. Victor's composure finally cracked. You're dead. So are a lot of people, including my brother. Nikolai's voice was soft, conversational. Did you think about him when you sold those weapons? Did you wonder what would happen to the soldiers who'd have to face them? It was business. It was murder. Nikolai raised his weapon, and now it's justice. Wait. Victor's eyes darted between Nikolai and Maya. The drive. You still need the drive to prove everything. Kill me, and you'll never find where I hid the backup files. Maya stepped forward, the encrypted drive still in her hand. You mean these backup files? She held up a third drive identical to the others. The ones Nikolai helped you create? The ones he's been copying every time you accessed them? Victor's face went white. It turns out your dead man was never as dead as you thought, Maya continued. He's been watching you for 2 years, learning your systems, copying your files, building a case that will destroy everyone who helped you, including me, David said quietly. Maya turned to look at her former partner, still lying on the ground where she'd tackled him, including you, Maya. David's voice was barely a whisper. I never wanted it to be like this. Then you should have made different choices. David nodded slowly. What happens now? Maya looked at the drive in her hand, at Nikolai standing over Victor with murder in his eyes, at the man who'd raised her and betrayed her, lying broken on the concrete. Now we upload everything, every file, every name, every dirty secret. Let the world decide what justice looks like. In Victor. Maya turned to where Victor knelt in the dirt, his empire crumbling around him, his protection gone, his secrets exposed. Victor gets to live, she said finally. But he gets to live knowing that everyone he's ever hurt, everyone who's ever suffered because of his greed, will finally have their justice. Nikolai lowered his weapon slowly, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. He killed my brother. No. Maya moved closer to him, her voice gentle. But killing him won't bring Alexei back. And we're not killers, Nikolai. We're not them. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant wail of sirens. Someone had called the police. There. Time was running out. The uploads, Nikolai said finally. Maya nodded and pulled out her phone. With quick movements, she connected the encrypted drive and began transmitting the files to multiple news outlets, government watchdogs, and international law enforcement. Agencies simultaneously. 7 years of evidence. 2 years of additional intelligence. Enough corruption to topple governments and destroy criminal empires. It's done, she said as the final file transmitted. Victor laughed bitterly. You have? No idea what you've just unleashed. We've unleashed the truth, Maya replied. Let the world figure out what to do with it. The sirens were getting closer. David struggled to his feet, his face gray with pain and the knowledge of what was coming. Maya, he said quietly, for what it's worth, I am sorry. She looked at him. For a long moment, this man who'd shaped her, trained her, loved her, and ultimately betrayed everything they'd both sworn to protect. I know, she said finally, but sorry doesn't bring back the dead. David nodded and walked toward the approaching police cars, his hands raised in surrender. Maya and Nikolai watched him go. What now? She asked. Nikolai was quiet for a moment, staring out at the city lights. Now we disappear. The files are uploaded, but there will be people who want revenge. People who want to silence the witnesses. Together. He turned to look at her. This woman who'd fallen out of a window into his life, who'd trusted him when she had no reason to, who'd chosen justice over safety, even when it cost her everything she'd once believed in, if you want. Maya smiled, the first genuinely peaceful smile she'd worn in 7 years. They walked away from the warehouse as the police arrived, as Victor was taken into custody, as David was read his rights. They walked away from the life Maya had built and the death Nikolai had faked, toward something neither of them could name, but both of them needed. Behind them, the city pulsed with light and life and the promise of change. The files they'd released would reshape governments, destroy criminal networks, and finally give voice to all the victims who died in silence. It wouldn't bring back Nikolai's brother or erase Maya's 7 years of living a lie. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, Maya thought, as they disappeared into the crowd, a beginning was all the justice the world could offer. 3 months later, Maya Chen officially died in a car accident in Prague. The same week, Nikolai Petrov's death certificate was amended to show he died in a different bombing. On a different date, for different reasons, the people they became afterward kept their promises to each other and to the dead. They lived quietly, carefully, and they never stopped watching the news to see how the world was healing from the wounds they'd helped expose. They'd fallen together. Through darkness and violence, two broken people who'd learned that trust was the most dangerous gift anyone could give. But they'd also learned that sometimes, when you gave that gift to the right person, it could save you both. The end.